This is the Biz of Wealth. Challenges, rumblings, and evolution of the wealth management industry.
Welcome to the Business of Wealth. Today I'm here with Hilario Itriago, who is a very experienced insurance professional that has specialized in Insurtech, which is very interesting to me. And I want to dig deep into this trend. I've been involved in fintech, not that much in Insurtech, and I would love to hear more about it. Welcome, Hilario.
Thank you, Alejandra. Pleasure to be with you.
So first of all, I'd like to ask, what got you here and what's here?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So I'm Venezuelan by origin. And I actually started my career in the Venezuelan oil industry, like any good Venezuelan would have hoped for back in the 90s or previous to the 90s. And so my dream was really working there, having a career there. But then, serendipity hit in, and an insurance company, a British insurance company that used to be based in Venezuela, recruited me, and I joined them in 2000. And I started an international career in insurance, first as a graduate trainee program in Latin America. Then I went to London, worked in the London market, which is, the mecca of insurance worldwide, learned my ropes there. And then worked in many other places, the Baltic region, here in Latin America, lived in Chile, etc. And so, I learned insurance as a traditional insurance business, as many people know it from the outside, and many people know it better from the inside. But in the process, late in 2016, the whole fintech movement created a derivative of insurance, which we call Insurtech. And I thought, there's something interesting here. I went to the original first large conference on Insurtech ever made in Las Vegas, here in the US. And I realized that half of the room, this is 2,000 people, right? Half of the room is talking about Insurtech. The other half of the room doesn't know how to spell it. And I was like, you know what? There's got to be something here. So let's find out. And so I, since 2016, have got myself into this space where Insurtech is something that I've learned from inception. I've coupled it with my experience on traditional insurance, and here I am. I'm one of those that believe in the digital distribution of insurance, which is really what Insurtech is all about. And I believe that the more people get insurance, the better their future and their lives is, because it protects wealth and it creates, growth and many other things that I'm sure we're going to talk about. But here is, to your question, I'm very involved in Insurtech. I apply digital insurance distribution on everything I do on traditional insurance, and I'm a big fan of it.
Good. So you've lived all over the world. You've evolved your career. And there's always one single lesson, like one piece of advice that one has in the back of their mind. What has stayed with you over the years?
Yeah, I'm missing Asia though. I haven't been in Asia. I haven't worked and lived in Asia, but I never give up hope.
Bucket list.
Yeah. I think that professionally, the single best advice I actually got while living in the UK was your network is your biggest asset. The fact that you can pick up the phone, fire an email. These days, send a WhatsApp message or whatever. The fact that you have a network, a strong network you can connect to for whatever reason, advice, support, help, it's really and truly your biggest asset. Now, to cultivate that network, you have to be a good person. You don't create a strong network by just being a bad person. So you kind of over the years learn that you have to curate your contacts, you have to curate your relationships. And therefore, that's how your network becomes your biggest asset. I think personally, probably the best thing I've learned from my parents and in general is you never really give up. If you're really operating under conviction, there's no reason why you should give up. And so if you pair the two, you would always have a chance, in my opinion, because by not giving up and also having the resource of reaching out to your network for support and help, then you should be okay throughout your career.
So when you talk about network, like the traditional notion of an insurance salesperson or an insurance guy is very much like the greatest salesperson out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like financial advisors, which a lot of them hear this podcast, and CEOs have a ton to learn from them. And there is this notion that sometimes it's too much. Like sometimes the insurance salesperson is a little too pushy for the taste of a financial advisor. A financial advisor will keep their network tight and not that wide. And an insurance guy will go out and really like push it everywhere that they can. So what can they learn from you guys without feeling that, like, I don't want to be rude, but it sometimes is financial advisors feel like they are cheapening their product when they go too wide, right? They feel like it's not that exclusive. So what would you say they have to learn from insurance, the financial services guys?
Well, I think there's two things, right? And this goes back to the difference between banking and insurance. All of us wake up in the morning concerned about our money, our savings, our wealth. How do we keep it growing? Do I have enough money for my kids' colleges? All that. Nobody wakes up thinking, "Oh my God, have I bought the right car insurance policy? Am I underinsured? What happens if there's water in my kitchen this morning and my insurance doesn't cover it?" That really doesn't happen. So you are in this space where you're selling in many ways a kind of a commodity product, but a commodity product that people don't necessarily feel they need, much less that they want. So, a financial advisor is dealing with the monies, and people pay attention to someone who they have entrusted their wealth to. And that's a very recurrent, relationship as well. It's my savings, it's my 529 for my kids, it's my 401k, it's et cetera, et cetera. So, you don't really need to cast a very wide net. The insurance guy sells you a car insurance. The likelihood of him selling you also home insurance, low. But some of them have good portfolio. The guy who sells you life insurance, is not going to sell you home insurance. It's a completely different business. So we, in the insurance industry, really need to cast a far wider net to really have a business that, makes sense financially. I think in the context of what I was telling you earlier, in terms of the digital side of things, I think the insurance intermediary, because before they were actually knocking on every door and ringing every phone and pushing for the sale and all that, these days that's very different. And that insurance intermediary, broker, agent, however you want to call it, has to operate in a far more smoother way, one that has still some sort of connection and trust to buy an insurance product, but one that, in order to cast that net, they can do it digitally, and it's a lot cheaper and more efficient, and more effective in many ways. So I think the nature of the financial advisor guys understanding that difference is important. The fact that they can both work together through digital channels to actually have a better product for customers, it's also a very valuable things to learn between the two of them. So there's more for cooperation than the distinction between the two areas, I think.
Yeah. And so how has it changed? I'm curious about how Insurtech is changing the the structure of the industry. Of course, I know that now the searches start online. The product, as you say, is commoditized. What do you see the role of the insurance agent being in the future? Is it a guide? I see it, it's the same in financial products. So I see it as a financial advisor being the guide and the human support to the technology, but the technology not going away. How do you see it?
Well, neither of them are going away. Let's be honest. I mean, the technology in itself is not going to, build trust into a human being to actually buy a product. They may make the purchasing process easier and far, less complicated. But that's going to happen on the simplest of products, the ones where the customer is just looking for price, and that's when the product is being, kind of pulled to the customer. I need car insurance, therefore I go to Progressive and I quote my car insurance and I get it there. That's very different than when you actually get a product pushed at you. And you actually get all these offers to buy that insurance. If you don't understand the product is more complex, there's no technology that's going to explain you that. So you do need an individual to really guide you through that process. So that's not going to go away either. But that individual needs to learn how to operate with that technology in a way that they truly add value. So the example of that is these days you go to many websites and you have a chatbot. And there's different levels of sophistication for that chatbot to interact with you for some of the insurance products. Up to the point that if the chatbot doesn't resolve your doubts and doesn't take you to actually convert you as a customer, then they can talk to a human being. When that process is really well designed, by the time you talk to the human being, you get the value of that individual talking to you and explaining to you things that the chatbot didn't have the capacity to do. And then the other thing is, many of these intermediaries need to learn that there's a number of add-on products that really help your experience in different segments that they don't even have to push at you to sell. You will buy them because you see the value in them. Just to give you an example, these days, travel insurance is very different. Travel insurance used to be a product that sold you, a policy that covered you from, I twisted my ankle in Paris because I was on holiday, all the way to, I died in Paris and they had to send me back to my country, in ashes. Bless you. So that in itself, has changed because your experience as a traveler, especially post-pandemic, it's a lot more about your health. It's a lot more about your health. It's a lot more about your experience. Did my airplane got delayed? If it got delayed, where are my bags?
And it's just an add-on to the purchase. It's not.
It's add-ons you don't even see. Exactly. So you would have what is called a parametric insurance. My flight is delayed by an hour, I get paid $50. If my flight is delayed more than 3 hours, I actually get access to a lounge where I'm at. And all of that is an insurance product. The other angle to it is, I actually now travel, you travel, we all travel, and everybody's connected to public Wi-Fi's. Now, everybody can get hacked. And that's a reality. Every day, we all know. Yeah, so, you get an add-on that covers for expenses should your identity be stolen while you're actually traveling because you were connected to an unsecure Wi-Fi, or you plugged in a USB in the airport to charge your phone and somebody sucked all your data. So that's stuff that previously we didn't think about, number one. Number two, the traditional intermediary didn't even ask for because they weren't aware that existed. They wouldn't work to design those type of products. And number three, they don't even have to sell them. They're part of the package of the solutions that the channel where you're buying, whether it's Expedia or Kayak or any of those, are providing to you to get a better service.
So Insurtech anyway seems to be sort of is in its toddler years, would you call it?
Yeah, that's a good analogy. I would say so. Yeah, especially in Latin America and in the US, much less in Asia and Europe. Asia and Europe, I'll say it's getting into the teenage years. following up much closer to fintech. I think in Latin America and the US, like the Americas in general, not even going into other emerging markets like Africa, etc., it is in its toddler use. I agree.
So how would what are the companies that are doing it right in Europe and Asia that are taking the industry forward? And
great question. So Asia, there are companies like Zhong'an and Ping'an. They're companies that have or that realize much earlier than in other regions. And I'm talking early in the past decade, 2011, 12, that in order to distribute insurance to the masses and really get people protected with more insurance, it needed to be a technology distribution play. And so they created these very large ecosystems around the adoption of technology that had the insurance embedded within their platform. So, for example, return shipping for e-commerce companies was created in Asia. You buy something, at Alibaba or any other platform, you get the product, didn't fit, didn't like it, I don't want it, you ship it back. That's typically paid by an insurance policy. That's not paid by your retailer. And so when you think about the number of transactions that happen in Alibaba or Amazon or whatever, and how many of those get returned, you realize, wow, there's a massive business here, especially if you can embed that insurance into every single transaction, and only the percentage of those that get returned are the ones that the insurance company pays for. So that's just an example that was created in Asia. I think Europe is a market where insurance penetration is far higher than in the Americas. It's probably one of the highest in the world. And so the culture of buying insurance is far more present in the average consumer than in the Americas, especially for products that are non-traditional, products that cover you for a number of things that are not necessarily your car or your home or your business, etc. So technology plays a fundamental role in the growth of Insurtech. Distribution in an embedded basis is the way that this is growing. And, and I think we're catching up, but we're catching up in a very healthy way.
Yeah, when you mentioned, the companies that are successful in Insurtech are the ones that are embedded into the e-commerce process. That's interesting to me because that's exactly what happened with fintech too. The successful fintechs,
sure,
most successful ones are the ones that are embedded into the purchase process or embedded into the commerce process. They're not the ones going directly to the consumer. Why do you think that is? On a massive scale, it makes sense, but I think it's taken a long time for the consumer to adopt those products, right?
Well, I think if you look at the companies that have gone by themselves to do it direct to the consumer, the premise that the technology needs to be a very key component of their value proposition is still true. So when you think of companies here in the US like Lemonade, or Hippo Insurance or any other of those newcomers, or what's called and known as new insurers, they have an experience that's second to none, right? You bought an insurance for your bicycle got broken, you took a picture of your bicycle, you told what happened to the chatbot analyzes with artificial intelligence, and they paid you right through Zelle, right? And you didn't even talk to anyone or didn't phone anybody. But that has a massive investment.
Right.
Like any direct-to-consumer product, it's a massive investment for them to really get and convert clients. Whereas the distribution channels that have, already the captive clientele, it's just a question of actually getting the product adopted, as opposed to acquiring the customer and getting the product adopted. Mm-hmm. So, but once you have that, the result is phenomenal. The single biggest component in Best Buy's balance sheet is the insurance program.
Oh, wow.
One of the largest pieces of revenue and actually bottom line results for Apple is Apple Care. And Apple Care is an insurance program. So when you realize that, and I can count you many others, Verizon, AT&T, all of those that offer you, you want an extended warranty for your phone, it's covered if it actually gets, water on it and whatever. All that is insurance programs that you don't even think of them as insurance when they offer to you when you're in an AT&T store, but you buy them because it makes sense. Only after the fact you realize this guy actually sold me an insurance policy. So that's the beauty of it. That's why embedded is so powerful.
But it's also powerful because of the margins, right? I was hearing the other day how most life insurance policies actually go unclaimed. And that's where the profits come from, right?
Well, historically, and we have to make that distinction. And as an insurance guy, I have to defend my industry. But historically, there were products, as you say, that is what I used to call, the ghost insurance products. The ones that you had embedded in your credit card or your bank account, but you never really knew. Or they were in the paperwork that was given to you, but you never really cared about it. You cared about the lounge access for the Amex Centurion credit card or that kind of stuff. You never really cared for whether you had travel insurance and what was the coverage for, and et cetera, et cetera. So yes, in those cases, many people didn't even claim. They either didn't know, they didn't bother to find out, whatever, and that was very profitable. But the reality is that the insurance product, when well designed, even at a very large channel, and even with a lot of information for the consumer about them having that insurance product, it could still be profitable because that's what their actuarial, calculations come into play and all that. So there's no reason why it shouldn't be profitable because people know about it. It's just making sure that the program is well designed to make it profitable for both channel and the insurance carrier. On the life side, it's a bit of a different story because it's quite more fundamental to the product that you bought, right? If you had an embedded travel insurance product, you didn't use it, it was cents to the dollar that you actually lost. But if you actually had a life policy, nobody ever bothered to claim. I would argue that the best company would be the one that actually makes everything to let the family know that whomever died actually had a life insurance policy.
Right. They don't do that.
Well, I'm sure there are those who do, and I'm sure those. I don't know. I have to ask my wife when I pass away.
So what is Insurtech doing right, and what are they doing wrong? Like, where do you see what has done right, and what has helped the industry evolve, and where is it lacking?
So I think Insurtech. I think this has been a kind of 1-2 punch if we talk in terms of boxing, and excuse the analogy. I think the first punch for Insurtech was saying, guys, the technology use for insurance is far more about how do we make it easier for the consumer to get insurance, and how do we penetrate, the uninsured for their own benefit and ours as an industry. It's a much more about that than the insurance company getting a new system to issue a nicer policy, right? Because in the early days, when people spoke about digitizing the insurance company, what was wrong conceptually was people thinking in the insurance industry, I used to, issue my policy on paper. Now it's in a PDF, therefore I'm digital. Well, no.
That's very common, yeah.
Like I said, that was only automating the chaos. That was just grabbing the same piece of paper, no difference whatsoever, and we'll put it on the screen. So taking ourselves from there to, I have an app on my phone that really makes it super easy for the customer to understand when they want to buy a policy, actually that they are covered when they travel because I can use the roaming on the phone to activate a policy without the customer even having to do so by flicking the phone. All that. That's what's really about. That has taken time because the investment into those type of technologies doesn't happen overnight. But I think directionally we're in the right place doing so. I think what has been done wrong is we still do a lot of automating of the chaos in that process. And we've mostly focused on the sale of insurance. We haven't focused so much on the servicing of the insurance. This part that I just told you where, I had my camera stolen or broken, and I can actually claim it on a very digital manner. I don't have to call any call center and speak with 3 people and send 44 pieces of paper. That part is the one that's truly going to make everybody go, oh my God, this was so good. I'm actually going to buy this policy again because it was so simple. It really worked. That's when the magic really happens. And that's where I think we need to go next to make it like really, really special for the consumer.
Great. Yeah, I think that the making it easier to get insurance is sort of an educational process that you guys went through. And that's very, very interesting that it really went out to the mass market. Okay. And lastly, I know that we're both based in Miami, and I wanted to touch on that because it's a city that has gained traction for the US for the first time. I think it's always been attractive to Latin Americans, but for the first time we've seen the US pay attention. The rest of the states actually pay attention to Miami and be attracted by it. And it's becoming this hub and this, it's a buzzword right now. Where do you see it going, and how would you recommend to take advantage of it?
Yeah, I think a lot of the Miami buzz has been a long time in the making. Like Steve Jobs used to say, all sudden successes take a long time. So it's been a long time in the making. I think the fact that we were thought of as the capital of Latin America for a long time has given us the maturity to then say, actually, we now can be one of the main cities in the US because of all that experience we've had with Latin America. I think Mayor Suarez has done a big push in putting us in the map and, trying to get Miami as a valid hub for technology and business development. I do think that now that we've got a lot of people moving in from New York and Silicon Valley and et cetera, we need to go through a proper maturity process that really gets us on the level of cities like Austin, Texas, that are on their way to solidifying themselves as a hub, but they're not quite there yet, like New York or Silicon Valley is. And what we should do is not to think that we're there sooner than we really are.
Yeah.
Because that could really end up being a bit of a wrong expectation management for the people that I've entrusted and moved here. I think there's still a large educational hub development requirement beyond what we already have here. I mean, we have UM and we have FIU and all that, but they're not competing organizations, educationally speaking, to the big Ivy League type of universities in the other cities. But it's a great starting point and it's a great stepping stone for us to build. So I think what needs to happen is let's take it easy. Let's make the most of it little by little. It's a journey. It's not going to be a sprint. And let's make sure that we deliver on those promises one by one, as opposed to think that we've already earned it. And that's what's really going to give us a good, solid path in the next 7-8 years. And by 2030, then really say, this is a city that now has all the key components for claiming its place in the map, as opposed to having the potential, which is what we've got now, to really claim and attract people to come over, right? It's a bit like, dating versus marriage. You date for the potential and all that, but then you only make the decision to get married if you're actually seeing all the things happening, and therefore you take the step forward.
That's a good analogy. And so what's next for you? You're with Box Insurance, and you're also involved with other organizations that help Insurtech startups.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about what's next.
Well, I'm Boxes today, and it's what's next. So I'm pretty excited to be with Box. It's a Canadian insurance business. We focus only on cyber. I think cyber is one of the most exciting risks out there to help people get protected and well covered. It affects the richest of the rich and the poorest of the poor, the smallest of the businesses and the biggest of corporations. So the market is huge. So I'm pretty excited to be involved in getting it up and running here in the US and getting it growing. I think no leader in an Insurtech era should really be satisfied if they're not fostering the ecosystem for insurance to really go fully digital. So that's why I'm involved in other things as an advisor or board member. An example of that is the LATAM Insurtech Accelerator. We're getting that going. It's the first pan-regional accelerator for Insurtech ever. We're using Miami as a hub for that. It's fully independent. It's not tied to any single insurance company or insurance-related organization. And it's casting a network whereby not only is Latin America, we have partnered with an organization here in the US called Broker Tech Ventures, that it's in Des Moines, Iowa, has done 3 different cohorts of this. That's part of also the Israeli Insurtech Accelerator. So we are connected to Israel, which is the mecca of entrepreneurship. So it's casting that network and getting it really powerful for us to operate within. At the same time, getting Latin America in the map and getting our Insurtech community and ecosystem growing there. So, yeah, I'm very excited for being in all those areas.
Yeah, well, fintech Latin American companies got a record funding in the last few years. I'm sure Insurtech is not far behind.
Yeah, that's true. And we're looking forward for that to happen to us as well.
Yeah. Okay, Hilario, it was amazing talking to you and learning about you and Insurtech. Thank you so much for being here.
A pleasure for your invite, Alejandro. Thank you so much.